Hello, this is the remainder of the game between Capablanca and Alekhin in the World Championship match from 1927. This is game 21, and it was a very interesting stage of the match. Alekhin had gotten ahead in the match by 3-2, first to 6 wins, and so 3-2, Alekhin ahead, and Capablanca was fighting like a tiger to get that extra win, especially with the white pieces, and catch up. But the Swiss defence held. Alekhin played it, I think, in games 13, 15, 17, 19. Held on each time, having swapped it about with the Cambridge Springs defence. So Swiss defence held up, and in game 21 he won with it. So this is the win in game 21. And it went like this. So our plan in the Swiss defence is to wait for the bishop to move and then take on c4. Capablanca played a3, waiting to move the bishop. And black thought, well, he can't think of any sensible mating moves. We'll hit the bishop, and then we'll take on c4 and play b5. And after the bishop went back to b2, to e2 rather. Well, I've said before, we should play here c5 because of this a3 move. White's got the possibility of playing b4. So before they do that, we'll play c5. In fact, bishop b7 was played. Capablanca didn't take the chance to play b4. Alekhin says that would have been okay. Kasparov said it wouldn't have been. And castles by white, and now c5, and now we've got the sort of position we're after. White didn't wait for black to take on d4, preferred to take themselves. Takes on c5, takes on c5, and now knight to d4, centralising the knight, stopping the exchange of queens. Rook to c8, one of our young ambitious rooks in play, and now b4, driving away the knight. Now, I think probably Capablanca expected Alekhin to play something like knight to e4, and there will be some exchanges, and perhaps an early draw. White having got little out of the opening, but black was more ambitious than that. The best square for that knight is probably c4, and so rather than going forward, there was the more aggressive retreat, if that makes any sense. Knight on c to d7, and the plan is we'll park it on b6 and then c4, and that's a better piece. In reply to this, Capablanca said he should have seen this coming and played himself knight to b3 with the idea of putting the piece on a5, which covers the c4 square. But for some reason didn't do this. So that's a line quoted by Kasparov, although Kasparov got it from Kotov and Kotov must have got it from Capablanca. So that's a possibility. And instead of the move actually played, which is bishop to g3, another idea here is bishop to f3, and after queen to b6, again we're just sort of unrolling in our usual way. Perhaps what should have been played was bishop to g3 now, rook fd8, queen e2, it's equal, and if instead after queen to b6, knight e4, just drops a piece, we think, takes on c1, takes on c1, and now rook to c8 was given by Alekhin, but instead of that, bishop takes e4, and bishop takes e4, g5, and that bishop's hanging on e4. So simple as that, really. So after knight on c to d7, heading for c4, bishop to g3, knight to b6 as planned, knight to b3, knight on f to d5, occupying a central square, bishop to f3. And now, after everything I've just said, you might expect the next move to be knight drops in on c4, but actually it's the rook that drops in on c4, and I think with a small advantage to black. Knight to e4, centralising again, queen to c8, backing up the rook, and now, well, I often say in chess, to take is a mistake. If you there's some tension down this c file, which maybe Capablanca was anxious to resolve, but taking just allowed the knight, so rook takes c4, knight takes c4, and that just follows black's plan absolutely fine. And a lot of people, Alekhin, Kasparov, all agree that was a mistake, although Capablanca in his own notes doesn't call attention to it. The right move after queen c8, according to Alekhin and Kasparov, was queen to b1, keeping the tension and not allowing white so easily to occupy the c4 point. And there's a variation in the notes. So rook takes c4, knight takes c4, rook to c1, and now we step out of the way with a battery along this diagonal queen and bishop, looking good. Knight to c3, getting some swaps in. Rook to c8, that's the other rook coming across to the c file. Takes on d5, takes on d5, takes on d5, takes on d5. And now we've got a quite a fine position for black. If you compare piece for piece, I think, you know, black's queen looks better than white's queen. The knight looks better than white's knight. The rooks are about equal, I guess, and maybe the bishop. The black bishop isn't as good as the white one just yet, but we can work on that. So Capablanca, not taking all this lying down, is trying to create some trouble for black, and takes aim at the b pawn, trying to create some pressure there. Bishop to f6, so that's improving the position of our laziest piece, according to Anderson's law. Knight to f6, and now, well, every piece that black has got is in a good position, so how do you improve? Well, one natural idea, I suppose, is to push the the e pawn forward, get a bit more space, and that's certainly true, but if you move the e pawn forward to e5, you're blocking the bishop on f6. So a little time in the think tank, and bishop to b2, a very sharp move, very accurate move by Alekhin. And well, there are various squares that the rook could go to, and there's a nice main line that was calculated probably by Alekhin at the time. Rook to b1, and now instead of allowing white to gain two pieces for the rook, knight a3, queen b2, knight b1, takes b1, queen to b3, and if we take on b3, it's going to be mate. So in fact, white does to get the two pieces, but it's not an easy game for them. And now in this position, there's various lines all analysed to a win, either by Alekhin or by Kasparov. If instead rook to d1, then takes on a4, takes on a4, knight to b6, and now if takes queen, rook has to scamper back to d1, and now knight to c3, and black's having a good time. Rook e1, rook c4, bishop d6, knight e4, bishop e7, and now f6, and we'll chase the bishop away. Rook e1, king f1 threatens the bishop. Bishop to c3, and now something's got to give for white, and pawn drops, and the a pawn will be very strong. So that's after bishop to b2, hitting the rook, and the rook goes to e1 instead. Rook to d8, taking the other file with the knight on c4. Takes on b5, takes on b5, and now white didn't have much better than h3, and now it was time for black to carry out their plan with e5. Rook went back to b1. I mean, we've looked at some analysis that suggested that wasn't terrific because of knight a3, but in this position black pushed forward with e4, and now where's sensible for the white knight to go? Well, Capablanca, I think, was short of time here and snatched at an opportunity to put the knight on d4, but it doesn't quite work. It looks straightforward enough that you win a pawn, so bishop takes d4. Well, think twice. Rook to d1, and white's hoping to recapture on d4 without losing a pawn, but instead he's missed knight takes e3, and discovering attack on the queen. And if white takes on takes the queen and takes on e3. Let's look at how that works. Takes on e3. Sorry, takes the queen, takes on e3. Then bishop takes e3 check is a discovered attack on the rook and a check, and white's going to lose material and lose the game. So after knight takes e3, white resigned, and so Alekhin moves another game ahead in the match, and again showing the value of the Swiss defence. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.